Special Branch and MI6 officer and the author of Black Ops.
I was undercover for Special Branch in a jihadi organisation.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe for free.
My name is Carlton King, and welcome to the Black Spy Podcast, the show that shines a light on the world of secret intelligence, national security, and armed governmental personal protection operations. But, as always, we major on the geopolitics. And last week, we really got into it. We started actually taking words, single words, and looking into the geopolitics of the single word. So we jumped from the Nord Stream gas pipeline being blown up down to pies on Fergus's birthday.
Down to King's prostate. Yeah, I know. We got there. Don't.
I'm not denigrating Fergus's birthday, by the way.
This gives you everything. This gives you everything.
Absolutely. So Fergus, please, where are we going to go? We did say we're going to look into this idea of vulnerability, didn't we, Dr. Rachel? And what I'd like to do is kick off this part 2 with that perspective. Who wants to start?
Well, I think Dr. Rachel should continue her line of thought with vulnerability, but I would also like to interject that we're talking about awareness days, and I feel that there's a level of vulnerability that sort of also aligns with peer pressure, I suppose. So there are certain awareness days that actually, I mean, as a parent, like for example, take World Book Day.
Okay.
Right. Carlton, are you aware of this?
Yeah, I think it's positive.
Yeah.
And the kids go and they dress up as a pirate or whatever, using pirates from last time or whatever, to signify the book.
You think it's positive because at 12 hours notice, your child hasn't turned around and said, last week I said I wanted to be a pirate. Now I don't. Now I want to be Harry Potter. And you're
Exactly
like faced with like another costume conundrum. I mean, I personally, right, I personally, like my mum friends and I kind of joke that World Book Day is a little bit like a sort of a walk of shame after a festival.
I see where you're coming from.
But with many people, right? But it's a lot of pressure for parents. It's a lot of pressure.
Fergus, can I ask you, because you know this, when did it come in? When did World Book Day come in? You'll know this.
Well, I'm gonna check that I have the right answer. But one thing I would say is that I challenge why. In fact, my children, my 7-year-old said to me, why is it called World Book Day? Right, it came in 1995. Right.
Right. Okay.
He says to me, right, what is it like? Is everybody in the world celebrating World Book Day?
Are they?
Or well, the first World Book Day was only the UK and Ireland, right? Right.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that's a bit like and I've also, I do have a little note to myself that Dr. Rachel has a Rishi story to tell this week, but that's a little bit like, yeah. but anyway, my 7-year-old says to me, right, Mummy, is World Book Day because everybody in the world is celebrating books, or is World Book Day because we are celebrating books of the world?
Interesting.
Right.
Good
and
kid. Good analysis.
From a 7-year-old, right?
Yeah, good analysis.
But the school does not do that. The school just like, and I would hypothesize that probably like 90% of the schools in Britain, right, they just go, hey, everybody dress up as, you know, somebody out of a book, and then Tesco's sells overpriced Harry Potter costumes, right? And then, you know, that all happens. So in terms of the you know, circling back to the you know, to the pressures of all of it, like World Book Day is one of the ones that mums just like, you know, it's actually just, it's another parenting headache. It's another sort of you know, it's another opportunity in many vulnerable mums cases, or you know, breadline parent cases, where you're sort of stretching the boundaries of reality because, you know, via the medium of your child, of putting your child on the radar of, you know, it's going, circling back to what we were saying in last week's episode about the case studies. You're basically asking your child to be a case study on the playground in a very real life situation. You know, hey, you're dressed as Harry Potter, but somebody else has got a better Harry Potter outfit, so they're going to pick on you. Oh, hey, you're dressed as some random person because your mum decided to read Chaucer. You know, oh, hey, you're you know, or you know, you're dressed as something out of an E.E. Cummings poem, or you know, there was that story in the media about.
I'm sorry, Fergus. Well, you know what? Paradise Lost. Why did you choose Chaucer? Why did you choose Chaucer? That's what.
There was a mum in the news about 10 years ago who sent her son as Christian Grey on World Book Day, you know, and there are also, you know, there are funny stories that the media pick up on, but you've got to feel for that kid, right? You know, yeah, okay, it's hilarious to be sent to school on World Book Day as the Argos catalogue, or yes, you know, oh, it's super funny to be like, you know, whatever, but the bottom line is it's not funny for the kid, and actually it's quite a stressful day for children and for moms, you know, and there doesn't seem to me as a parent, there doesn't seem to be a lot of correlation with global reading. So to circle back to my 7-year-old's question, you know, they might read books, but they're not reading books in different languages, they're not reading books from different cultures, they're not having books from international authors. You know, this isn't like the Hay Festival in schools, this is like a huge sort of capitalist and consumerist distraction where everybody feels like we're under pressure to dress up.
Yeah, I just want to give some of your listeners a tip here, Carlton, because the trusty old tinfoil can come out again. A really good go-to character, which I did for my little boy last year. He was Percy Jackson. You can make a really good trident out of tinfoil.
You see, this is the beauty of it. You see, for those of you around the world who don't know, first and foremost, I was laughing at Chaucer because of the education system in the United Kingdom, where there are those who have an upper education level, right, and go governor, because they've gone to public schools, and there's then those lower down. So we may not have chosen Chaucer. Don't get me wrong, great choice. But Andrew Marvell, Paradise Lost and all that. So we do have some education in the lower levels. But, you know, just to say, but no, joking aside. No, the reality is this, and this is the beauty of it. Why having 3 of us on the show from different perspectives is so fantastic. I took it stupidly, and I generally never take anything at face value, more on the face value of people saying, well, if we get a kid interested in a character, we'll get him reading. But what
it's not about the kids.
What you look to, particularly Fergus, is the pressure on the parent of creating the model, whatever that might be, of the dress that the individual wears to school. Yeah, you see,
Well,
so
it's
I
honest,
would never
but
thought
actually,
about that.
You know what? One of my best friends, in fact, she's a godmother to one of my kids, right? She does this brilliant thing, right? And she is a Daily Mail journalist, right?
Yeah.
She said when on any occasion when her child is required to dress up as something, right? She just sends him in a white in like a white school shirt, and then just gets a Sharpie, right, and just writes, you know, so if it's Halloween, she'll write ghost on him. If it's World Book Day, she'll write book, or she'll pick something really, you know, to circle back to what you just said. I mean, like, you know, she'll pick something like Jilly Cooper or something,
Yeah.
right?
Brilliant.
You know, it doesn't have to be Chaucer,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No.
But
I was being
you
flippant,
know,
kid.
but she's very despite the fact that, you know, she probably would be considered by a lot of listeners to be privileged, she very much does not, and you know, writes for tabloids. She very much does not agree with that level of pressure, but also she you know, it's she's not even trying to be a posh rebel, right? What she's essentially saying is, like, this system is broken, it's stupid, it's like the kids aren't benefiting, the parents aren't benefiting, right? Book sales, there's no uptick in book sales, right? So what's the point?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you see, for those for those listeners who don't understand, Fergus went to the same school as King Charles. So now you kind of get to understand why I often take what we might call in Northern England the Michael out of her, just because of that. It might be jealousy. Who knows? But I did not go to the same school
as Ian McKellen. I'm not far behind Fergus.
Well, there you go. Sam dropped down. I'm the one who's down the bottom.
But I think now is the perfect interjection. Now is the perfect time for Dr. Rachel to tell her Rishi Sunak story.
Yes, please. Winchester School and all that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Winchester College. Yeah. So obviously, your listeners will think, God, she is from the north, is Dr. Rachel. Well, I've decamped to the south, and I live just outside of Winchester city centre. And on Friday, I'd finished one session, and I thought, I've got an hour or so before my next one. I'm going to go and get some sunshine because it was a lovely, cold, clear day. I walked into Winchester and I thought, oh, there seems to be a heavy police presence. There's like 3 cars, you know, so that's pretty bad for Winchester. You know, 3 police cars, they're not normally to any. And I thought, why have people got the cameras out? I thought something happened outside a shop. And as I'm walking up, when I say people, there was probably about 10 or 12 people. It wasn't a lot of people. And I looked across to my right and I thought, oh my God, that's Rishi Sunak. And I said to the person I was with, David, I went, that's Rishi Sunak. He went, no. And I went, oh, wow, it is. Well, I can only describe what I felt then as if literally somebody had kicked my stomach. I got such a visceral reaction. I started shaking. And I said to David, I went, I really want to go over and say something. He went, oh, no, please don't. And then my problem was, where do you start?
Yeah.
What do you say? He had the local MP, Steve Bryan, and I've never met Steve, but we were email buddies during the pandemic.
Okay.
You know, so we had a lot of correspondence back and forth. And he did meet my children actually at school, and he said, oh yeah, I do know your mum. For email. But he was looking at him with an almost sycophantic, adoration on his face. And it was really interesting to me because Winchester is a Tory stronghold. Absolutely. But people were just looking and just glancing and walking on by. There was not that many around him. And he was dressed down Friday. And I thought he's had an interesting week in that he really had been put through the mill with his party and everything they were putting through. And I thought it's interesting that he's returned to his roots on Friday because he went to Winchester College. I have never seen a man look as uncomfortable in public in my life. He didn't look statesmanlike. He had camel chinos on and almost like a robot. He was just repeating, hi, I'm Rishi. Hi, I'm Rishi. So we went about our business because I couldn't say anything because I didn't even know where to start. And as we're walking back, I found it interesting because he had more of his people around him than the people of Winchester. So, and also none of the major tabloids reported on it, other than there just happened to be an off-duty Sky cameraman who caught quite an elderly lady who was berating him for the state of the NHS. And she said something, and he must have had an extreme nervous system reaction, and he started laughing. And just turned away from her, and his team were very quick to sort of say no, he was laughing at something that someone else had said. And I found it really interesting after the week that he had, that it was so low profile, how uncomfortable he looked, and I was so disappointed in myself in that I had such a bad reaction to him being there that I couldn't even think what to say, because it's not even a say, oh, where can I start? Do I start on the health system? Do I start on housing? Do I start on education? Do I start on the COVID inquiry, because that's a complete washout? Where do you start when the Prime Minister is in front of you? You have this audience that you weren't expecting to have, and you're just rendered helpless because you just don't know where to begin with him.
Well, you see, the thing is, that isn't an abnormal reaction. Obviously, I was in the protection game. People know that, with our most senior politicians. And when the Prime Minister, Foreign Secretary, Home Secretary, don't matter who it is, Defence Secretary, when they go around, what you'll find is, because Friday is Constituency Day in the United Kingdom. I should just explain, in the United Kingdom, different as to in the United States or in some other countries, every member of the government is also an MP, other than if you are a lord. So you can be a lord or a lady and not be a constituency MP as well, which is how they've got the former Prime Minister back, Cameron. So you can do that. But generally, if you're a member of the cabinet, you are an MP, a constituency MP. You've got to do your constituency. Now, his constituency is up north in North Yorkshire. But of course, he went to school down in Winchester, and that's made him. So he's probably trying to make a point there. I'll go around and I'll have some support down there. It's, as you say, it's royal blue Tory country. Tory, by the way, for those who don't know, is the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom, the sort of rightish wing party, right of centre party, sometimes very right as well, depending on where on which the MP is. So what happens though is that people have in their mind, I'm going to tell this guy this, and this, or gal, if it's a woman, and when they actually get in front of them, it's all it all falls away. Now that might not be because of the individual; it might be because of the presence around the individual, protection officers like ourselves, or whatever it might be. His constituent people, his PPS, personal private secretary, etc., etc., etc. All this gaggle means that what people then tend to think is, what can I really say? How can I stand out? And it's not abnormal. So, example, when I was doing the defence secretary, I'll tell you this one because I think this is a very good one to understand. I used to all the time when I was doing Secretary of State for Defence, all the time go to Afghanistan or Iraq, and this was an Iraqi one, and an operation had gone wrong, soldiers had been killed, etc., etc., etc. And I'd gone in advance, as you normally do, to set the whole thing up. I go in a week in advance, make sure it's safe, so the guy can get in and get out without getting killed. It doesn't matter if I get killed trying to do the advance, but it does matter for him. So I go up, set it up, and I said to the lads, we'll have a meeting here with all these guys, and he'll come along and he'll speak. And they said, I'm going to tell him this, and this. I said, yeah, tell him what the score is. Tell him, let him know why you could not do what you needed to do, i.e. they couldn't get helicopters to get out, blah, 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 blah. So he comes up and all saying, yeah, we're going to tell him. He walks in, not a single word. Right? And these are soldiers, hardened soldiers, not a single word. Nobody wanted to say anything. And that you find all the time. The other one to that is, I was doing President Clinton. He come out of office. He comes to Britain quite a lot because he was at school here at Oxford, and he knows his way around London. So we're in London. He's gone to the Bond Street and he's buying something. And the US Secret Service are there, so he's got his guys there, and obviously he's on our soil, so we are heading the protection with the Secret Service. My colleague from the Secret Service, the officer in charge, I was in charge of from our side. And we went to the shop in Bond Street. He bought some watches. We came out on this particular occasion. He obviously comes out quite often on this particular occasion. As he came out, I noticed that this is what makes me laugh. This is what I'm saying. I noticed that he couldn't not have people around him. So he came out and there was nobody there looking, and nobody had noticed him, right? So what he did is he saw a baby being pushed by the mother in a trolley and the guy standing next to whom I'm assuming is the husband, father, partner, whatever, right? And they were pushing them down like that. So he walks over to this baby, and he said, "What a lovely baby, fantastic. Do you mind? What a lovely baby." And the woman looked first and was like, "Who is this fella?" Dressed down, and we're all dressed down. Who's this fella? And then she said, "Oh, it's President Clinton! Oh!" So she starts shouting, "It's President Clinton!" And the boyfriend says, "Oh, President Clinton, of course you can, Mr. President, of course you can." Blah blah blah. And then next minute, there's a big crowd around us, right? Massive crowd. So we're all looking around, looking at the crowd. It's all honky dory, bum bum, and we move off. So I said to him, Mr. President, it's break time. We rock and roll. Bum. Oh yeah, okay. And then he says to me, "Oh," he said, "Carlton, you can't go anywhere without crowds coming." No. He created the crowd because he had nobody around him. He wanted the crowd, but then he has to say, "Oh, can't go anywhere without crowds coming." This is what these guys, politicians, are like. These guys and gals, they love it, but some characters can't carry it off, and that's the point I wanted to make.
Yeah,
Sunak cannot carry that off.
It's like it's funny. It's like do you know, like when he goes on public visits and all the rest of it, I just sort of feel like it's oh god, it's a bit like taking like a toddler around IKEA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's painful.
But circling back to World Book Day, right? And like I know the colour is wrong for his political party, right? But I'm hoping that your listeners do actually resonate with this with this book reference and don't judge me for having studied classical literature. But there's a children's book called Llama Llama Red Pajama, right? And it always and it does make me think that if Rishi Sunak was doing World Book Day, essentially it goes Llama Llama Red Pajama, waiting for his mama. Mama isn't coming yet. Baby llama starts to fret, right? And then the whole story is we can post the link, but I'm pretty sure that the parents in the listeners know this story, right? And it's about this llama who just can't cope without his mummy. Right. and there are so many issues in this children's book, but obviously it's a rhyming learning thing, and they wheel this out on World Book Day quite often because there are lots of emotion words in there, like hum, whimper, holler, and be patient. All of which Rishi could probably listen to.
I think you've chosen a superb one because the famous interview he gave about 10 years ago now, when he was an up and comer, and they asked him about working class, and he said, "I don't know anybody from the working class." And you see that in him. He's so uncomfortable amongst normal people, and even in Winchester, I suggest that he was uncomfortable.
He was so uncomfortable.
Oh God, because there's chaps like you, Dr. Rachel, in Winchester. Like, God, what has touched you?
I know, it's like it's almost like maybe at that point I should have, when he said hi I'm Rishi, I should have said hi I'm working class, and then we would have been able to make that kind of distinction now, but I'm like a safe kind of working class because I'm like the most favourite kind of person for the Tory party, like I'm a striver.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is the thing. It was just, I was so upset with myself because I really did want to say something, but then I sort of understood why people express themselves in the form of eggs and milkshakes with politicians. It's like,
So explain to me, Dr. Rachel, what is the mechanism behind you not being able to say something, which I've witnessed on countless occasions? What is the mechanism?
Well, I think for me, I just felt completely overwhelmed and silent, and to meet somebody, actually in a place where generally I feel quite safe and quite secure walking around, to meet somebody who has brought such calamity to my country, you know, I'm a UK resident, to my country to use, you know, me as a UK citizen, a British citizen, as he keeps saying, that do things in my name when none of the policies, none of the legislation is anything that I agree with. But to you, and that it was complete overwhelm. It's like, you know, if it was just one policy that I disagreed with, I'd go straight to that. But because there's so much, you know, I just literally in that moment couldn't decide which was the most important thing to talk about. So I went to a state of complete overwhelm. My nervous system was on fire. And then when we were walking, I've never walked home as quickly in my life, and I've never composed a Substack bit of writing as quickly as I did on that Friday.
but do you know what? Had you known that we were going to talk about awareness days, you know, you might have challenged him about his ban the boats week. You know?
Exactly.
Which he was trying to make a national thing, wasn't he? He was trying to massively put it on the agenda, and all it was just like daily reports of, you know, like dinghy deaths.
It's racism.
Yeah.
Let's call a spade a spade. It's
well, let's call it racism.
He's playing into the racist card. He's playing into the card, though.
The clever thing about Rishi, right? Like the clever / not clever thing about Rishi, right? Is that, like, the Tories got him in and they went, oh yeah, brilliant, he's a brown person, so we can get all our racist policies through.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. But then now they're like, oh shit, all our voters want to vote for all our racist policies.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Now fuck, because he's not a strong enough leader to do what Boris did, right, and get the voting, you know, to get the voting furore up in the racist space, right. You know, because we've put him into so that we could get. Do you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, well, I'm talking.
Well, you see, racism is.
So really, they sort of almost need like a minister for racism, don't they?
Yeah. But racism is sometimes colourblind. You see, this is what people. Exactly. This is what people don't understand. You see, it doesn't necessarily mean that because you are brown or because you are black or because you are yellow that you like other people.
Sorry, but Suella Braverman is like the classic example of how racism.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, but this is the thing. I don't know whether I've mentioned to you before some seminal research about racism, in that it's generally not the colour of somebody's skin that makes you want to act with hostility towards them. It's how they speak. It's the accent that they use that's more likely to induce a kind of racial hostility than what somebody looks like, which I think is really interesting. So, you know, as you know, the colour of Suella Braverman and Rishi Sunak would denote that they're, you know, from an ethnic minority. However, they don't talk like they're from their ethnicities, and that makes a huge difference.
I think that would make a great difference in the United Kingdom. I'm not so sure that would make a great difference in the United States. It's the breadth of educational prejudice that comes with it. So in Britain, example, if you speak in a certain manner, it doesn't really matter so much the colour of you. What matters is the class that you're portraying. Because what happens in Britain, we doff our caps to the ruling elite. Right, you know this, Fergus. You went to the schools where the people were all different types of people.
Okay. Here's a funny anecdote, because I'm going to change the tone.
Yes, give me your school one. Give me one of your schools.
Here's a funny anecdote, right? Here's a funny anecdote, right? This is a classic Scottish joke, right?
Okay.
But there would have been no one at my school that could have enunciated this joke, right?
Okay.
You have to say this joke in a Glaswegian accent, right?
Yep.
So a Glaswegian man walks into a cake shop, right? And he points at a cake and he says, "Is that a cake or a meringue?" Right? But you have to pronounce it like, "Am I wrong? A meringue."
Scottish. You went to Scottish school but can't pronounce it. Okay, I'm with you.
You see what I mean, right? And then the baker says, "Oh no, it's a cake. You're right, it's a cake." That's the joke. Right. Is it cake or am I wrong?
Yeah. I'm with you.
Do you see what I mean? Like, I can't pronounce that, and I went.
And neither can I was going
And
to say
nor
good
can
luck
you,
again.
and clearly
Neither
not
can
Rachel, right?
neither can born Scots who are who are of the ruling elite. That's the point
Yeah.
of Britain. Britain is
Yeah.
all about that class system. And I'll tell you another one you said came to my mind when you were saying it. It's height of the IRA, height of the Troubles, Catholic, Protestant, blah blah blah, and a guy's walking down the road and he's a Sikh, and he's stopped in the Falls Road and he says, "Where are you going, fella?" He says, "I'm just going down the road here." He says, "What's your religion?" He says, he said, and obviously that's a Catholic area, and you're likely to get killed if you're not a Catholic, and vice versa if you're a Protestant. So I'm not making anything on in Protestant areas. So he says, I'm a Sikh. He says, "Yeah, but is that a Catholic Sikh or a Protestant Sikh?" Right,
Yeah.
right. You see what I'm saying? So the context was.
Yeah.
What was the worst bit was, what is your religious aspect, Protestant or Catholic, your Christian religious aspect? And that's beautiful because that shows you where you are. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
Rishi Sunak's lot couldn't give a monkey's uncle about people who just happen to be of Indian heritage.
Also, like, yeah. Also, they don't know any stupid jokes, do they? You now made me think about stupid jokes. Like, one of my favourite chortle moments, which is really un PC, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Do you remember that joke about where did Saddam Hussein keep his guns in Iraq?
Oh no!
It's like
very good, very
anyway,
good.
Right, listen. We are going to move on because we started off talking about awareness days, and I really want to talk about telethon days because because there is a difference between someone putting a pin in the calendar and calling it National Peanut Butter Day or National Kazoo Day or whatever, right? And some of the days that are that have more, when we circle back to what Carlton always says about following the money, some of the days that have more money behind them, that have more sponsorship behind them, and more heritage behind them, right? So I'm gonna say, let's talk about Comic Relief, Live Aid, and children in need, in particular. Children in need, like people think that it sort of started in the 1980s, but actually they trialed it in like the 1920s, believe it or not. They started out, they raised about £1,000, which would have been the equivalent of about 60 grand in new money, right? They trialed it back then, but children in need, right? Does anyone know, or do you want to hazard a guess, what year was the highest year for donations? I mean, it's obviously it started in the 80s, and then it kind of went.
I'd probably say when we were doing very, very well in terms of perceived by factorism, probably about 93, something like
that. I'd say when everybody's really, really poor. So I'd say around either in the past few years or around 2008. I'd say that when we were perceived as having nothing, people went into the pockets deeper.
Well, you're both wrong.
Right. Good. We like that.
Answers. No, but good answers. Right. Okay. So 2018 was the highest. They got 62 million in 2018, but factoring in not just the telethon night, but other donations, etc. as well, right? So 62 million in 2018, right? Guess. Does anyone know, or would you like to guess what children need? What the donations total was for last year?
So 60 odd, 2018. Let's say 45.
Dr. Rachel?
I want to say a bit like 56, 57.
33 million.
Wow.
It's a hell of a drop.
It is, isn't it? Now, okay, so look, let's look at that. Now, Comic Relief, right, which was started in 1988, I think.
Yeah, Lenny Henry.
It's Lenny Henry and Richard Curtis's charity. Yeah. And now they started it like to support Ethiopia, because this is all off the back of Live Aid.
Yes, absolutely.
At the time, Bob Geldof was
a visionary,
but very if you like my mum, who obviously spent a lot of time in poorer areas of Africa, would say that Ethiopia was quite a polarized view of Africa.
Yes, correct, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think
I agree.
But for better or for worse, this charity was obviously started in 1988, and every year they have Red Nose Day in March. Although actually, interestingly, in the first 20 years, it was every other year.
Right. Okay.
Right? Okay. Guess again. Quiz question again. Right. Guess which year. I'm going to flip it the other way. Guess which year they hit their maximum donations, which was 108 million.
I'd say the earliest. Is this taking into account how money has moved around in terms of inflation? But I would have put it.
Now you're starting to sound like my mother, but
yeah, you got to look at that.
But sort of. It is sort of, because it does take into account the corporate donations as well. So guess which year was their highest year, and the income was 108 million.
I'm going to go around the Geldof era.
Dr. Rachel?
2000. I'm going to say later. I'm going to say it's going to be in the 2000s. 2012.
Oh, 1 year off. 2011, right? So points to you, right? Okay, but guess what it was last year?
Way down.
Yeah, if children in need, surely it'd be, I don't know, say like 30, 40 million. Yeah.
Right. 31 million last year, right? But the interesting thing about Comic Relief, right, was that it wasn't just set up to pay lip service to a cause. Okay, they operated. They set themselves up on the golden pound syndrome, right? So which as an explanation to listeners, it means that everything that was donated, every pound that was donated, should have gone to charity.
Yes.
And corporate sponsorship should cover the cost of the upkeep.
Yeah.
Right. Now, so we need to, when you look at the good intentions, I suppose, you kind of think, yeah, great. I'm going to come back to Carlton in a minute and say, question, why was Lenny Henry having to spearhead this? Mm-hmm. Right. My second thing is that I worked on a campaign to Comic Relief were very vocal about the Robin Hood tax. Again, for listeners, this is about taxing high level financial transactions so that good causes can reap the benefits. And I worked on a campaign to raise awareness of that, and Comic Relief were very vocal. So it's I think, yes, what they're doing is great. I think we still need to circle back to why are taxpayers being sort of essentially taxed for all of this, and thirdly, going back to but thirdly, I also sort of find it, from a media side, I do find it slightly bizarre that the just us circling back to the geopolitics internally, right? I find it slightly bizarre that there are geopolitical areas of interest where suddenly, if you listen to last week's episode when we were talking about case studies, they might be able to find a random village where they can bring out some sort of mawkish, tear-jerking fundraising story.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I feel like the ethics and the financial intellect and the sort of geopolitical intuity of something like comic relief is much better than many other awareness days, I still find it quite naive that they pick certain hotspots, and not others. And even just going back to the sort of Houthi pirates, we don't know where the next threat's going to actually come from.
I mean, Dr. Rachel, do you want to jump in and say something on this issue, or do you want me to?
Well, from a geopolitical point of view, it's a very human thing. Is that they sort of play on the emotions of people. That these are set up to help people of disadvantage, people in poverty, and people feel stirred into action. Really, I think they should ban all these days, and the action should be you should heckle your leaders. That particularly we're living in a democracy, so we're told. And instead of giving you whatever, your tenner and all this virtue signaling of fundraising, that needs to stop, because we have to have the uncomfortable conversation that we have disadvantage, we have poverty, because it suits the people in charge that we have this under, these people who are struggling, because we can blame them for everything. And I think
just going back to Carlton in his 1950s and his biscuits, right. Like, surely there's an argument with of when we're all paying our taxes, why are we also then donating?
Yeah, well, that's not part of your tax, is it?
Why are we helping? Why are we giving all this money to help the government? And actually paying it forward. Please, Mr. Beast, come on our podcast, right? But this goes a full sort of 360 from, like, in the 1950s, you wouldn't have donated half your wages to this sort of cause, because you expect the local councillor to deal with it,
because you needed it.
Through to then, obviously from the 80s to the noughties, people did. Now, Mr. Beast is just going, hey, I've got loads of money off YouTube and I'm going to fix the problem myself.
Let me give me some time to push this through in its various ways. So first and foremost, the system we inhabit requires winners and losers. That's just a basic analysis. So therefore, when you then spread that out, you take that from the micro to the macro, it's the same in the world system. So in the world system, we require people that don't make any money, because capitalism is exploitative. So we need to exploit them in order to give more. Now, in the past, your 1950s, the people at the lowest levels in, say, in the wealthy countries, so the United Kingdom example, they were part of the exploited in that sense, but they were also part of the exploiters. I'll explain why. Because to enhance capital, you needed them to keep buying. So you wanted them on a low level, because that's what business does. If you're a business person, you need people on a lower level so you can make what you require and they'll work for you cheaper, etc., etc., etc. But in the wider sense of the world, you also need them to be able to buy what you're producing. And if you don't make enough, they can't buy what you're producing, so you can't expand. So that's where the problem lies. So you have a class of people who are low. Now, the reason why I said your man was a visionary, right, was because in doing what he did, he could open the eyes to a lot of people in the West, not just to give, but to see why should it happen that people are in famine when there's no need for it. Now, I don't care about giving, because that's what a state can do. But why is that happening? Now, one of the big reasons was that the GATT agreement, the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, what that was doing in those days was basically putting up the same tariffs and the same borders and the same preventative, if not higher, in fact, for the goods to come into the wealthier parts of the world than it was for them to get threats from your table. So the aid we used to give in the old days was all tied. You know, the Canadians, us, whomever, we used to give tied aid, which basically meant we'll give you $1 billion, not $1 billion, never really, hundreds of millions, right? But it means that you have to buy our tractors. So we'll give you our tractor, part of your hundreds of millions, or within that aid is also military weapons that we'll give you to keep you fighting so we can get stuff cheap from you. We'll give you that. But when we give you your tractor, we know you have to come back to us for our parts, which means we're selling our goods to you. Do you see what I mean? So in reality, they weren't giving anything. They were actually just opening a market that they could control. So that's how the system was working. It was undermining you. Now, these bits that come in there, the Save the Children, whatever, they kind of still run that way, but they're a little bit different because actually they're doing it generally out with the government aspect, which means it might go to people who actually need to get something. This whole model has been pushed up on its head actually by China, because China's come in, particularly into the African continent, and said, what do you need, guys? I need this. We'll build that for you. Right? You need that road. Now, if you turn around and you're an African leader, and you say, build me a railway from, let's take an actual one, from Nairobi down to the coast to Mombasa, right? They'll say, yeah, we'll build that for you. Not a problem. Right, so they build it, and you've got a fantastic new railroad that can move people from one end to the other. Now, they say this is the amount of money we'll put into it. Anything over that, you have to pay us for it, etc., etc. A good president, prime minister, says, we'll build it with your know-how, with your say-so. That way, then, when it goes wrong, we can rebuild it. A bad prime minister says, you build it for us. It looks good for the people. People vote me back in. I'm happy. They've got it, but when it goes wrong, they can't rebuild it because they've never had the people, or the goods, or the capacity to do it. Now, in Angola, I noticed that he was saying, you build it, but we want you to build it with Angolans, right? So therefore, they've now got the machine, and you have to leave the machinery behind afterwards. Now, what's the quid pro quo for the Chinese? The quid pro quo for the Chinese is the raw materials they need. It's no different than any Western person going in for raw materials, but paying the cheapest prices. The Chinese say, we'll build you this, and we'll then get part of this from our raw materials. So in Angola, it's oil. You know, it's maybe bauxite or something. You know, so that's how it's working. So that's how they've changed the model. If you go to Africa now, there's, you know, Britain example ran for 200 years. 150 years, ran the whole of East Africa, parts of West Africa, etc., right? And basically, the systems were built from wherever the mining was taking place, or whatever, or the cotton, or whatever they needed, to the coast. In other words, to get the stuff out of that country and to feed the mother country, which was the United Kingdom. What the Chinese have done is say, what do you need? That's the big difference. That's why they're all fearful of them now. That's why they say, oh, China this, and they're putting them into they're putting Africa into a debt crisis. It's rubbish. They're actually building stuff that they need. They're building hospitals they need. Or they're making a road that says you don't need that little small hospital you've got on the side built by Comic Relief, because they're going to build you a road that gets you to the big hospital in half an hour rather than 3 days. Do you see what I mean? This is how you change the system. And that's what's happened. Why is China doing it? I guess two reasons. One is because it's New Belt and Road Initiative, which is actually to have all the economic systems moving around by China, which is positive to it. Secondly, because the Chinese went through the same system. They were exploited in exactly the same way and don't like what the West did to them. And thirdly, because, you know, they need the raw materials like everybody else does. So it's quids in, it's win-win. So that's the bigger geopolitics.
Going back to the human though, right? In last week's episode when we spoke about case studies and we spoke about the potential exploitation or whatever. Like, look, I mean, look, we're all tone aware of those sort of mid-afternoon TV adverts where it's like, you know, Water Aid or you know,
or Donkey Aid, even better.
Well, yes,
that gets more money.
Yes, for DAPS, because we sponsor a lot of donkeys. But you know, in terms of humans, and the sad faces of children, and and the exploitative images in order to encourage people to dive deep into their pockets or sign up to direct debit or whatever, and so going back to what Dr. Rachel said on last week's podcast, what's the mental health effect of that? And also, look, I know this might sound like a bit of a flippant anecdote, right? But Rich, he was right, he was like a poster boy for in North Berwick in Scotland, where he grew up. There's like a ferry, and he was like a poster boy for wearing a life belt, right? And that poster is like, he's 45 now, and there's like still the poster for him wearing the life belt as like, hey kids, wear your life belt, right? So it's, I just feel like, I know I narrated to you the fact that the media system isn't perfect, but it is moving towards protecting the stories, and I am going to keep calling them stories, the stories of case studies. But in geopolitics, what stops the charity just grabbing some B-roll of? But
they do steal it.
Exactly, and they do, and that's the point. But what I'm asking Dr. Rachel to answer is actually, what's the everybody is a human, right? Every single human is a human, right? And we need to start thinking about that. And should the narrative of the sort of fundraisers and awareness days, etc., should the overarching reach be about thinking about people as humans?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that, because at the moment, the narrative is about whether they're raising awareness, it's about a group. And actually, I was complaining about this yesterday, is that people who have got now diagnosis of disorders and conditions are rebranding themselves as if they are that condition or that disorder, and that to me is fundamentally wrong, especially when the state of humanity is such as it is. And again, alluding back to what Carlton talks about often, that suits the people in power. What I would love people to do is, like, let's just focus on being as human as we can be. And, human beings need other human beings to thrive, no matter what their circumstances are. When you look at sort of charities and awareness days, and you look at the aims and objectives, and, it's always about making things better for that group of people. And I want to challenge them, especially, if this day's been going on for decades. Have you really made things better? Is it not time to start thinking, well, we had the best of intentions, but, really, have we made that much impact? Have we done that much, looking at the state of humanity? And I think we need to start looking at it that way, saying, yeah, we might have had the best of intentions. We might have wanted to make a sort of inroads and make a dent in this, but let's look at what's going on in the general population. And the more that we can help each other and support each other, naturally everybody will improve. Because at the minute, everybody is segregated. Everybody's in their own little silo, their own little group, and nobody's getting better because of it. So I would really, have an urge that we have a year of humanness, where we get rid of all these days, we get rid of all these telephones, and every human being just aspires to be the best human being that they can possibly be.
Yes, absolutely. My say so always is, if I do anything on race, I always say that race is a biological nonsense, right? But, and this is the big but, it's an absolute political reality, and that's where the problem is. It's politics.
It's politics.
So you see, what you have is, example, that I'm sure there are good people carrying out work in Save the Children or whatever else. But you see, I'll give you an apocryphal story, reality. The big earthquake in Pakistan, I'm trying to remember when it was. When it happened, I went out there. and I took our Secretary of State for Overseas Development. It was a massive earthquake. Thousands died, if not tens of thousands. And we turn up, first of all, obviously in Islamabad, and then we speak to the ministers there in the Pakistan government, and we say we want to go and have a look at the site, etc. We're going to give something from the United Kingdom, blah, blah, blah. So the place was awash, and I mean absolutely awash, with people from countless, what do they call them, charities. I'll give them the name of charities. Right, countless charities, Western charities from all over the place. And normally we'd stay in the Hyatt or something like that. Okay, very top level hotel. I'm not going to hide you. Top level, we're going to stay in there. You couldn't get in. Chock-a-block. Couldn't get in. All the hotels taken. And they were all taken by these people from charities. Right? Who were there. So we stayed in the embassy. So we stayed in the embassy, right? 2005. That was it. 2005. So we stay in the embassy, right? So the embassy put us up. That's it. Nice rooms. That's it. All good. And then we say, right, we're going to fly down to the site. So we had to try and get, it's my job to try and get helicopters, etc., aircraft, whatever, to get us down there. We could hardly get anything because everything was taken up. But this is the thing I'm going to say to you. None of those people from the charities, right, especially the leaders, were actually going down to the site, which is like 1,000 miles away, of the earthquake. They were all staying in Islamabad, eating superb food, living a superb life, swimming in the swimming pool, having the best food in the best hotels there, because it's nice in Islamabad. Having it all laid up for them, and talking about, this is our logistical perspective. We're getting the logistics going, right? And on good salaries. And in fact, one Finnish woman, I remember saying, what other job would you get like this where you have so many days off a week? Fuck a dead. You have so many days off in the year. You stay in the best hotels, blah, 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 blah. Right? I thought, hang on, I thought you meant to be somebody who's got compassion. You're just bothered about living well. Right? This is the problem. Now, maybe she went in with compassion in the beginning. And after 10, 20 years, whatever it was, she's just fed up with it. And therefore now, I'm just living the life of Riley. Very good salary, thank you very much, because they're on good salaries, these people. You should know that at the top level. And that's it. Now, the locals doing the actual job, who you never see on television, by the way. You always see the Westerner there. The locals actually doing the job. They're in the mud and the dirt, and they're trying to pull stuff off with their own hands, etc., rubble away. They're still there. So this is what happens. You could see that in Gaza. I mean, I've been in Gaza 1,001 times. Exactly the same. All the NGOs do, the locals doing it are actually working. But the people at the top are living the life of Riley, often in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem, in the top hotels there, be it the King David or be it in the other one. And they're all sat there living a life of Riley. Now, I'm not saying everybody's negative, but I am saying there is a system of abuse in terms of I'm highly paid, thank you very much, I'm doing a great job, and I'm happy, I'm okay. Because they're living to the standards of the West. That's a problem for me.
Yeah, it's a huge problem for me as well. It is, I have I put that all under the virtue signaling umbrella, which I have a huge problem with.
Right. Just to answer. Right. Okay. Let's say that good and intelligent people such as yourselves, cut off all information, and we've obviously seen the downturn in donations to even the majorly publicized and supported awareness days. Clearly there is a conversation about the cost of living crisis, and clearly there's a there's a conversation about how many people actually watch TV and engage with TV and etc. But there is also, but I would say, that there is also a conversation about, taxpayers kind of feel like, well, we're already paying tax. Why should we take this forward? So flipping this back to you both, actually, if we'd have been on the streets of Winchester last week, What placards should we have been raising in front of Rishi?
I'll go first. I will have said, Rishi Sunak, why are you and the guy before you, who cost the death of at least 500,000 Ukrainian men, potentially also some women, in the Ukrainian armed forces, when a peace agreement was on the table about 4 weeks into the war, why are you spending literally billions of pounds, right, trying to not defend the Ukraine but degrade Russia? Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Right? What's the political point? And I'd say to him, because I just think you're following the United States and you've not got your own policy. So, and I know the United States have spent hundreds of billions on that battle, but they're spending billions here, if not coming up now to 8 billion or something like that, maybe even 10, right? Which could go very, very well for the United Kingdom as to what we require, rather than basically getting Ukrainians killed and the odd Russian now and then. This is where we are, and in fact, what you've done is you've improved Russia. Why have you forced them? Why have you forced Russia into a war? That's what I would be asking.
And from a very personal perspective, what I would like on my placard is, why are you treating me like I'm stupid?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that covers everything that I'm aggrieved with. I think, and also you can like have a little joint banner, couldn't you? Stop telling those lies and thinking that they're truths. Trying to convince us that it's true. Stop lying.
Yeah.
Do you know what mine would be? And I really apologise to anyone who feels that this might make me sound privileged, right?
Well,
right.
We introduced Chaucer to the English curriculum.
Iambic pentameter, I reckon.
I used iambic pentameter because
Have cold showers have cold showers with His Royal Highness watching you. Is that would that be one of them, Fergus?
my suggestion to Richie, look, I'm not being posh. I'm just trying to say that, fortunately, I know how to sail a boat. Okay, so what I would say is, until you know how to sail a boat, don't make a policy about small boats.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Oh, I like that. That's very clever, Fergus.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, I do like that one.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we come to that witching hour again, because it is an hour. And we're going to have to say goodbye for this week and for part 2 of this discussion. Now, I'd open it up to my two favourite ladies as to what you may wish to add in the next few minutes before.
All I'd say, Carson, is I've been needy and grabby because the last 3 weeks episodes, I've begged listeners to subscribe and also to recommend us to BBC Sounds. And I did say that BBC Sounds have been a little bit slow at responding. So thank you for everybody who has tried. It's not our problem, it's BBC Sounds' problem, but we will try and get you some more intel for next week. However, I would like to hand over the final word this time to Dr. Rachel, because I think she can do better than hello.
I can definitely do better. I want to sign up. In fact, this is a plea from me. In that, before you do anything this year to support a charity or to raise awareness about anything, please could you just think about what my mission in life is? I want to try and create a better and kinder world, one brain at a time. So if everybody that listens to this show could actually think, how am I creating a better and kinder world, then that would mean the world to me.
Fantastic. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you again next week.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy Podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy Podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for free.
Here is a working class spy telling his stories, the secrets, the lives of spies. Feel free to message Carlton King on all socials and give this show 5 stars on Apple iTunes and subscribe so you never miss a single episode. For your ears only.
I was a member of Her Majesty's Secret Intelligence Service.